How we doing, traders? And welcome to the SPACs attack. Let's get it. How we doing, traders? How we doing all over the world? Welcome to the SPACs attack, where we go over everything SPACs. And boy, am I excited! I got out of one, got into one. I'll go ahead and let you guys know a little bit later. But let's bring on the brains of the show, my man Chris. How we doing, Chris?
Hey, what's going on, Mitch?
Hey, super excited as we always have been working hard to bring in, more executives and experts for you guys. And if you guys are excited, definitely smash that like button down below. Share this with everybody on Twitter. We'll have Arrival on in just a couple minutes. So let's go ahead and let's get into our headlines of the day. So, Chris, what's going on out there? Take us back, man.
All right, guys. Yeah, so before that exciting interview, want to get through some headlines here in SPAC world. So first up, we have LGVW, so Longview Acquisition Corp, merging with Butterfly Network. Yesterday, they announced their vote date is set for February 12th. They also named a new CEO. Dr. Todd Fruchterman. He was the former president and general manager of 3M's medical division. Remember, this is one that I mentioned yesterday as a possible buy the dip opportunity. Shares were up after hours last night, with that vote date set and now that strong addition in the new CEO. So this is definitely one that I am keeping my eyes on. Then yesterday we talked about rumor GNAC. So Group 9 acquisition is in talks with BuzzFeed to bring BuzzFeed public via a SPAC. So keep an eye on that one. RBAC, so Red Ball acquisition. This is one we've talked on the show a lot. Rumored since early August, September to take Fenway Sports Group public, the Boston Red Sox and Liverpool. So it's now been reported that those talks have ended. So Red Ball kind of goes back to the drawing board here. My guess is that they look to acquire more ownership in a company, grab a whole soccer team or something else, as before they were only going to own a stake in Fenway Sports Group. And it sounds like they could not raise enough money to get that deal done. We did have those 5 deals announced yesterday. I want to hit on the movers. So we had TSIA up 45%, IACA up 14%, SPRQ up 21%, LCY was down 0.4%, and WPF up 1%. So again, as we talk about timing your entries, a lot of those stocks were up huge in the pre-market, including some over 100%. And as you can see, the big winner was only up 45%, and we had 2 that were up 1% or less. I will note that I bought shares of SPRQ yesterday after the dip. I'm a huge fan in the clean energy initiatives coming this year, and also with Chamath being behind that one, with the pipe. This was the one of the 5 that I went ahead and bought shares, on a dip yesterday. Another rumor out today, we have ASPL in talks with Wheels Up, which is a private jet charter company. This rumor is coming from Reuters. Again, Reuters has been a pretty good source of these rumors, so we will keep our eyes on that one. STPK, so merging with STEM. They had a new investor presentation out yesterday. They raised their fiscal 2020 projections and then also announced that their fiscal 2021 targets for financials are all 100% funded. So it looks like, this next year is going to be an exciting year for them, but I would be expecting them to kind of raise guidance going forward with some of these future years. And then our one of our big stories yesterday was Joe Biden, of course, announcing plans towards electric vehicles. One of those things was to make all government vehicles electric, which there's a fleet of 645,000 vehicles for the government. So a couple SPACs to watch here. We have XL, GIK, RIDE, and then also we've talked on the show before, Workhorse. Of course, with that possible postal service contract, and they are tied to Lordstown Motors. And then Hyliion, HYLN. I will note that I own shares of GIK and HYLN. We just did a show on some Joe Biden SPACs, so go ahead and rewatch that, as I think those electric vehicle and charging infrastructure names are even more relevant, with that announcement from him yesterday. On Mad Money last night, Kramer discussed several of the new charging infrastructure SPAC plays. He talked a lot about TPGY being his favorite. That's, of course, the one bringing EV Box public, the European play on charging infrastructure. They're also looking to expand into the US. So out of the ones mentioned, that was the one that he favored. And then Proterra, so coming public via ACTC, announced yesterday they're partnering with Komatsu, a leading construction company, on making some all-electric construction vehicles. So we haven't really gotten into that industry. We're getting into cars, trucks, fleet vehicles, but construction has been kind of a untapped mentioned area. So keep an eye on Proterra with ACTC for electric construction vehicles. And that's it for headlines, Mitch.
All right, like always, Chris bringing in the information so that you guys can make your informed trades. So one of the things is I definitely want to get right into the interview because we got a lot of questions to ask, but I definitely want to also let you guys know, like we always do, full disclosure, I got into Hyliion today, and it was based off of what Chris just mentioned, with Biden announcing that kind of government vehicles. And one of the things is I'm seeing this story, and I think it could change from here on out. It's hung around there on the lows. So just full disclosure, I got in today 1775. Gonna risk off today 1750 and see what happens. See if I can get right back up into the 18s and hold that $18 hold point. All right, guys. So another thing I want to let you guys know is I did get out of Fisker. I wasn't able to let you guys know yesterday, but with that drop yesterday, I did get out. So now I want to get into what we're going to see today, and I think there's no better way than to show you guys this video. So let's get into the video and then we'll bring on the interview. Man, I know you guys enjoyed seeing that. I'm gonna let you know right now. I'm gonna have to reach out who made that promotional video because I need to up my skills myself. So I'm gonna hit the like button on that. And before we do that, let's go ahead and bring on our interview here, Chris. Let's go ahead and introduce.
All right, guys. Yeah, so another exciting interview today. We have the president of Arrival and chief strategy officer, so Avinash Rugoobur, joining us on the show. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having us.
Welcome. Super excited to have you on. I felt the energy after that video, so I'll let Chris go ahead and get into the questions, and I'll be back with some great ones myself.
All right. Yeah, so let's dive into some questions. So, as we bring on, heads of companies that are choosing a SPAC to go public, I guess that's the first starting point, and the biggest question is, why choose a SPAC over a traditional IPO to join the public markets here?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it really comes down to our history. So Arrival had been in stealth up until end of 2019, but we've actually been around since 2015. So we've been developing technology for 6 years. We have over 1,500 employees. 90% of those are engineers. We've developed an extremely strong portfolio of technology. That includes, vertical integration. So you saw the video there about the Microfactory, but it also includes unique composite technologies. We do all of the components in-house, and we have a very strong software layer to both control the vehicle, but also out into the cloud for customers to access data on the vehicle. So when you add all of that up, and we had an investment from Hyundai and Kia, we also had an investment and an order from UPS. We're at a place where when we look out over the next 12 to 18 months, I should also mention BlackRock was also invested in Arrival. And when we're looking out and saying, okay, what is it that we need to do? We're bringing the vehicles to market. So we've got the Arrival bus, we've got the Arrival van, we've got 2 microfactories that we've announced, one in Rock Hill, South Carolina, and one in Bicester in the UK. And essentially, we're looking to scale, and we're looking to scale rapidly. So when we met with the CIIG team, the fact they've got amazing experience, Peter Cuneo, ex-CEO of Marvel, really great experience in public companies, in running businesses for scale and branding. We thought, with our real technology capability paired with them, and so Peter, for example, is actually going to be joining the board of Arrival. When we met them, we shared the same long-term vision. They really took the time to understand what the scale of the opportunity is here for us. And so we decided it would be the best partnership. So, we're really happy with where we are.
Perfect. So I want to touch a little bit on your experience in the industry. So you have a career, you worked at General Motors and with Cruise Aviation. So of course we've heard of, a lot about Cruise lately with that Microsoft partnership in the news. But what does your experience in the industry bring to Arrival going forward?
Yeah, so I think, so I'm an engineer by background, both mechatronics and computer science. So I think what Arrival is really doing is combining the best of software development with the best of robotics and hardware engineering, which is difficult. And I think my experience in the industry, I've really seen firsthand just how the legacy of the existing industry really slows down the ability for a lot of the traditional OEMs to innovate. And I think where that's coming from, for example, in a typical OEM marketplace, when you're going to design a new vehicle, you're looking at, a 5-year development timeline, upwards of hundreds of millions of dollars, but you're also stuck with this legacy factory that you've got, that you've spent, in some cases $1 billion on, and you have to amortize that CapEx. So you're required to really use that factory, and it limits that ability to innovate on the production process. And yes, there's continuous improvement, but we've taken the Henry Ford approach, and it's served very well. But right now we're using a process that's 100 years old to produce vehicles in the modern day. So with my experience, when I looked at what Arrival was doing in terms of the ability to use this microfactories, which is a cell-based, low capex, low footprint production approach, I just saw it's a step change in the industry. And you did mention Cruise. I'd led it in innovation activities at General Motors in Silicon Valley. I actually led the acquisition of Cruise for GM, and then was leading strategy and M&A there. And it's just extremely transformative what Arrival's doing. And I'd never seen anything like it. So I hopped over and moved to UK a few years ago to join Dennis, the CEO, and the team on the mission.
Yeah, awesome. We're gonna dive into some Microfactory questions later on, because I know we're all excited to hear more about that. But I want to back up. You talked about some of your investors in Arrival. So we have UPS, Hyundai, Kia, and BlackRock. So I want to start with UPS. So they have an equity deal in place and also an order for 10,000 electric vans. Can you talk a little on that relationship with UPS and what that looks like?
Yeah, sure. So in fact, UPS has actually been with Arrival since the start. So, there was basically work going on since 2016 with UPS. And that includes, they have tested our components. They've worked with us on developing the van that's out there that we announced publicly. And, what's unique about, I think, the Arrival UPS partnership is the ability for them to come in because of this rich technology portfolio that we have. And probably just worth explaining it. I like to think about it as layers. First of all, we design all of our components in-house to reduce cost, to enable the manufacturing through the microfactory. and to anything that needs to be smart that we want to be able to have data from. Then we house that in a skateboard platform. All EVs and even the traditional players are all talking about skateboard. What's different for ours is we use very simple processes that are cheap and obviously can be assembled in a microfactory, and they really house the components and house all the crash structure. Then we have this composite material, which reduces the need for the CapEx, metal stamping and paint shop, and which are also large footprint. We don't need those plants, which again reduces the footprint for the microfactory, and those are recyclable, sustainable materials. So with all of that technology level, they're able to come in and literally work with us on the vehicle that they need. And if you think about how that industry has worked to date, because of this requirement to use the traditional manufacturing process, companies have to produce hundreds of thousands of vehicles to make a profit. And even then, it's pretty low margin. So when a UPS or any of the large or small customers come and needs very specific products for themselves, the traditional approach just can't do it. So with us, they were found a partner that were able to really say, okay, what is the ideal vehicle that you need? And let's go out and make that happen. And so, when they've been with us for this journey for the last 5 years, as you mentioned, they have done an equity investment in us, but they've also ordered, 10,000 vans from Arrival with the option for 10,000 more. And I think that shows in terms of what our product's capable of.
Awesome. So then some of those other partners, so Hyundai and Kia, we're seeing Hyundai a lot in the news with some possible Apple rumors. Anything to add with, Hyundai or Kia and how those investments look? Could that lead to partnerships, or have any talks started in terms of that?
I obviously can't disclose too much about sort of the overall, the day-to-day of what we're doing. But what I can tell you is that investment is actually a partnership where we're joint developing vehicles together. So using Arrival's technology paired with Hyundai's global scale, that is part of what we're actually working on together. So I think there's going to be some pretty exciting developments around that.
Awesome. So then you're a UK-based company. So can you talk a little bit about how that's going to transfer over to the United States and the growth here?
Yeah, so we've just announced recently our US headquarters in North Carolina. And I think what's really exciting is that when you think about what Arrival's doing with the microfactory, we basically can be anywhere. And it's part of our philosophy to really have a decentralized approach to what we're doing. And obviously with a COVID environment right now, I don't know if it matters where you're working, right? But the US market is a critical key market to us. It's obviously a very large market. A lot of the UPS orders are for the US market, but a lot of the orders that we also have in terms of LOIs are also for the US market. So we're going to have a very significant presence in the US. We've announced one microfactory there to date. You can imagine that we're looking actively at other microfactories based on the demand. In that US headquarters, we'll be having obviously our automotive division, but also engineering and R&D as well. And I think our process really allows us to make products specifically for certain markets, again, because of the way the unit economics work. So I think UK is the headquarters, but we are going to be listed on the NASDAQ, and US forms a critical part of our strategy.
So how important is it, and how much attention does a UK-based company place on the changing of administration here in the US? So obviously, President Joe Biden, very positive comments on electric vehicles, including electric buses, which you guys are focused on as well. So what kind of thoughts does Arrival take away from the new administration change?
Yeah, I think it's extremely positive. I think it's in line with where the industry has to go. As you know, it's been a slow-moving industry to date, where I think if there isn't some sort of impetus to really move it forward as a step change, it takes a lot of time. But it's not just North America. We're seeing this everywhere around the world. And one of the things that the microfactory enables is that we can go to governments and really have discussions about local production, local talent, local taxes. And we're finding that happening everywhere. I think there is if you pair what's happening, I think with things like the new administration are discussing about complete transition to EV, and if you look at the performance of EV companies in public markets, the investment in the private markets, I think you see that there has already been that step change, that mind share has already changed. I think people are recognizing that the future is electric. There's nothing really that's going to stop this train, and I think it's great to see governments giving an extra little impetus to moving that forward.
Right. So want to jump in here and ask you some questions. One of the things that I've been paying attention to is really your unique approach to the method of manufacturing. That's really what I've been focusing on here, and how you guys have really changed kind of the automotive industry after like 100 years now. So can you explain me exactly what is a microfactory and why is the method going to be better or more efficient?
Yeah, so I think upfront, I think once you produce vehicles in a microfactory, I think you don't go back. It's a step change to the industry, and I think, if you look at the sort of the key stats of a microfactory, it's 20,000 square meters or approximately 200,000 square foot. It's under 50 million in capex. It produces 10,000 vans a year or 1,000 buses a year, and I think what it really means is there is no version. So even if you scale this out to volumes of hundreds of thousands of units and compare it to a typical plant, we're less than half the capex and we're less than 1/10 of the footprint. But to enable a microfactory, that has actually taken 5 years of engineering where, all of the components are designed for that. The skateboard platform's designed for that. I mentioned the materials, the composite materials earlier that we have. We're able to imbue the color inside. It starts as a fabric. It's a polypropylene composite as a base. And we have a unique process to turn it into the panel. And it means that you don't have to have a paint shop and you don't need a metal stamping plant. So you're taking hundreds of millions of capex out and you're taking really large footprint plants out of that too. So you're essentially shrinking all of that down. But what does it actually mean? Like, why do it in a microfactory? Obviously, the per unit cost for production is less, but you can actually pay back the factory significantly quicker. So not only are you employing local talent and really changing a community and bringing production back locally, it also makes the right business sense. So it means it allows us to think of each microfactory as a product and make each one of those profitable on lower volumes than what a much larger factory would do. And if you think about how the factory works, if you were to take the lid off a microfactory, you would see technology cells. And instead of the typical production line, which runs at one speed, and if there's any ever issue, the whole line stops, you essentially have technology cells, which autonomous mobile robots bring parts to the cell performs an operation, and you can actually optimize the whole path. And over time, if you think of the microfactory as a product, it itself gets smarter. And if you think about if there was ever any issue in a cell, you're just rerouting where the parts are going, and you can continue along with production. So it's not just the capex and the opex and the footprint benefit that you get. It's actually the production process has now become, for lack of a better word, smart, and it can be upgraded over time. And we're just going to find more and more efficiencies of that because the way we think about the microfactory as one other product and one other technology layer in this ecosystem we're building.
Yeah, one of the things that I've noticed is that I heard this stat that, that majority of factories require about like 1,000 robotics to build. And then this form of manufacturing would only take about 70 robots. Is that a true stat?
We haven't publicly disclosed exactly how many robots, but it's an order of magnitude like you're speaking about. And I think it makes a significant difference in how the operation is done. But to do that, just to be clear, you can't take an existing vehicle architecture and build it in a microfactory. And that's why we had been in stealth for so long. That's what we were developing. You need a whole new vehicle architecture, new way of thinking about the product to enable this. And we have internal tools at Arrival that ensures that any part that we do, from design to engineering to production, is all validated by the microfactory approach, so it can actually produce the vehicles. And if you see, the Arrival van, it produces best-in-class products, and that's critical for the customer side.
Awesome. So how proprietary is the microfactory for Arrival, and has the company received interest from other automotive companies or elsewhere, to kind of launch these microfactories in other industries or, competitors?
That's a great question. So in terms of the patent portfolio, it's an extremely strong patent portfolio. We've got IP across the microfactory, the composite materials, the components, our software. Within the microfactory itself, how the actual process flow works, the vehicle design innovation. So we have an extremely strong patent portfolio, over 180 innovations that essentially is in like a patent book, each comprising of multiple innovations. And in terms of the way to think about Arrival, to answer your question about others approaching us, Arrival doesn't just create best-in-class products, it's creating the systems that create best-in-class products. And that means that those systems essentially can be platforms. Now, we're extremely just focused on making sure that the production of the bus and the van and the microfactory commissioning, that's really our key focus. But to answer your question from a strategic lens, yes, these are platforms that could be enabled for other forms of production. I can't talk too much about other interests, but as you can imagine, there's, we're really focused right now on the EV sector to begin with. That is something that, it really has to transform. We really need to get all of the internal combustion engines to being electric, especially in this underserved commercial vehicle segment. But essentially, a lot of the technologies could have applications either within the same segment, like for example, autonomy. All of our vehicles are autonomous ready. All of the data's coming out of the vehicle. It means we could potentially partner with an AV software provider, or we can go off and do our own. So there are multiple layers, I think, to the growth story of Arrival that we'll be talking about more in the coming years. But for now, it's about the bus, the van, and the microfactory.
Awesome. So I want to talk a little bit about timeline here. So I guess first question would be on the vehicles. So I've read the timeline is electric buses, fourth quarter of 2021, and electric vans, second quarter of 2022. Is that correct still as far as timeline?
Yes, that's essentially correct. So we launch our bus at the end of this year, to your point, in 2021 Q4. We are already commissioning the microfactory for that, and so right now we're building prototypes. We've been testing these components and vehicles for quite a while. So at the end of this year, we'll be starting production on those vehicles, and follow that by next year, we will be producing the van. Now, the van is actually going to be in, there's two versions of the van. There's the small van that you may have seen in the presentation, but there's also a larger van, also for the US market. And that actually starts production in Q3 of next year. But pre-production vehicles are already being built. They're going out to customers for testing. We'll have more to share on that shortly. But yeah, you're essentially, I think you said Q2, it's Q3, but essentially in that time frame.
Okay, perfect. And then, so obviously we've seen lots of players in the electric vehicle market. So in terms of Arrival, who do you see as your main competitors, with electric vans and electric buses? And what's the key point on how Arrival really stands out from the competition in those markets?
I think, you're seeing this interest, I mentioned it earlier, because I think people have recognized that step change. And in the commercial vehicle segment, it's been underserved. And fundamentally, we've taken a unique approach to bringing commercial vehicles, best-in-class commercial vehicles, because we believe that's what it took to really get the industry to end up with the products that they need. When we look at the competitive set, it's not really for me to comment about what we believe others are doing well or not so well. At the end of the day, we focus on the fact that, if the key differentiators are, as I mentioned, we've got over 1,500 employees. We have an extremely strong order book. We have right key strategic partnerships with Hyundai, Kia, UPS, BlackRock. We have the necessary capital to scale the microfactories, particularly because they are also lower capex, so we can actually have more of those. And so when we just look at the actual product itself, which at the end of the day is what the customer is going to buy, I mean, for example, our van, it is a 2-ton vehicle with a 2-ton payload, and it's got a better cargo volume than anything else in the segment. And I think when you look at that, it means that customers can pay similar prices to diesel, because all of our vehicles are price competitive with their diesel equivalent, but can carry a higher payload and more cargo. And I think, you know, that's a really strong proposition when it's also green, and you also benefit from an ongoing TCO saving as well as the upfront price. And so I think it just places us in a position to capture quite a lot of market share. Obviously, you know, there's folks like Rivian who are doing great stuff. They've got the partnership with Amazon. But for us, it's really about, we still believe we have the best in class product, and we're going to be out there at scale, and we're able to scale. I think it's an important point that these microfactories can all scale in parallel, and it takes us about 6 months to get an existing warehouse and convert that into a manufacturing facility. And I think that's something that just hasn't been seen before. So our ability, once we have 1, 2, to go to 10, 30, etc., I think is extremely rapid. And so I would say our tech portfolio differentiates us, the number of people, and 90% of engineers, and our overall approach. Like I said, I've been in the industry over the last couple of decades, never seen anything like what we're doing at Arrival.
Hey, so I've been doing a little bit in-depth research, and one of the things that I found super interesting was RoboRace. You know, and to me, you know, what better yet than, let me play a quick clip here.
RoboRace is a racing project, so cars, the team, everything was designed to make the development life easier. So we have 2 racing vehicles, one called DevBot, another called Robocar. They are useful in their own way. With DevBot, it's a little bit easier to do early tests. So we put our safety driver behind the DevBot steering wheel. Once we are confident and sure that everything is working as we want, we then go on the Robocar. And Robocar is a very cool vehicle. When you look,
it can't get cooler than that. I had to play that clip. So, you know, one of the things that I've been focusing on, and I mentioned it on this show, was that, you know, all these EV vehicles need to take it to the next level, right? And so my eyes is really focused on, you know, autonomous driving and how we're really going to accomplish this mission. You know, so can you explain how Arrival is taking both racing and public road data and combining them to better understand this autonomous driving and solve the issues of, first, you know, how to detect the environment and plan your trajectory, but also, you know, on solving the questions on how is it going to handle and how you're going to get the best performance out of these vehicles?
So first of all, I think this is the first time we've actually been discussing RoboRace, so good digging. So RoboRace is powered by Arrival. We have multiple teams involved in that. You know, Stanford, MIT, and Carnegie Mellon. We ourselves have a race team in there. And we do use that as what's the most extreme we can push autonomy. So RoboRace holds the Guinness World Records for the fastest autonomous car, but our team is involved in that to learn, you know, for example, if you're going to take off LiDAR, if you're going to do, you know, real-time mapping, how far can you push the technology at really extreme levels? So one of the things that happens in RoboRace is while these vehicles are racing, digital, let's say, objects are placed in front of the vehicle, and we see how the vehicle responds, right? And you can do that at speed. And if you watch the live streams, you'll actually, you can see that. We call it the metaverse. And so that technology sort of transfers down into, you know, our bus and our van. And what we're doing there, we're solving autonomy, I would say, on 3 levels. One, the actual vehicle platform itself. So one of the issues with autonomy is that it's not just the software that's changing rapidly, it's the hardware. And the hardware is on a 12 to 18-month refresh rate. Now, no existing vehicle architecture can handle that. But with the way we've done the Arrival vehicles, those components I was mentioning earlier, they're essentially plug and play. You can swap them in and swap them out. So for example, if the compute requirements change over time, you can actually put in a new one. That means our customers can buy an Arrival vehicle and maintain that same asset, and we call it autonomous ready. It can just be upgraded for autonomy. The second layer is we are developing depot autonomous applications already in our vehicles. Now, why does that matter in the commercial segment? It means you can safely move the vehicle from the charging station to the cleaning station to the loading bay. And these are applications that today's technology can manage without even expensive LiDARs. I mean, that is a controlled environment, clearly marked lanes, and there's obviously safety benefits for doing that. And then we have the ADAS systems. And so what we do is we take that sort of extreme performance, we look at how the algorithms work, how the tech's working, and we feed that back into this development loop as to what the actual vehicle autonomy, the road-going vehicle autonomy needs to be. As mentioned, I think that we are also going to be able to partner with many folks on our vehicle platform, because autonomy is going to end up being quite regional, because just the nature of cities and the way things work, it's going to be very difficult to get one autonomous solution, at least with today's tech, to work across every city everywhere in the world and all weather conditions as well. So we are pushing that down into the actual vehicle development process, which is really cool. So you should check out the Guinness Book of Records video. And if you want to see something else on race cars, you can check out Charge Cars, which is also powered by Arrival Tech. And that's old Shelby Mustangs that are sort of reimagined for using electrifications. So check that out. And we do a bunch.
You couldn't say better than bringing Mustang into it. You know, we're a Detroit company, so hey, you got to support Detroit, baby. All right, Chris, go ahead. And I think Chris has a question or two from the viewer, and then we'll wrap up and get you out of here. I know we kept you a little bit longer, so everybody smash that like button for staying on a little bit longer. Chris, any viewer questions?
I'm seeing a question here about Charge Cars and any other future sister companies. So anything to add there?
Nothing to talk about publicly right now. Obviously, there's Charge Cars and there's RoboRace. But yeah, you can imagine it's that same philosophy. The technology we're developing in Arrival, if you look at our bus and our van and our small vehicle platform, they use those same technology components just repackaged in different ways. So, you know, one of the things over time is the ability to take that into multiple different products.
And then I saw a question earlier about LiDAR. Is Arrival looking into LiDAR at all? And probably can't disclose who, but has there been talks with any LiDAR companies?
So we're analyzing all the technologies in terms of autonomy. So it's LiDAR, yes, I can't mention who, but LiDAR, infrared cameras, ultra high def radar. Obviously, LiDAR still has the cost issue. The question is going to be, at least in our autonomous rollout, you know, starting with depot operations, we don't need it. I think the jury's still out in terms of full road going, whether or not it's needed. I think for us, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, because we can plug it in if needed, and if we don't need it, we don't have to do it. So I think, you know, from a technology platform perspective, I think we're well covered depending on wherever that technology ends up going.
Awesome. So guys, I know there was more questions in the chat, but unfortunately we don't have time to get to all of them today. But we want to thank Avinash Rugoobur for joining us on the program today. We heard lots of great talk about Arrival, and I am so excited for those microfactories, to really change manufacturing going forward. So I love that video that we played as well. So Avinash, thanks for joining us on the show. We look forward to following the progress of Arrival, of course, merging with CIIG merger, which is ticker symbol CIIC. So thanks for joining us on the show today.
Thanks, my pleasure. We'll have to get you into the Microfactory when possible.
We would love that.
We'll be there. We'll be there for sure.
Let us know.
Have a great one. We'll bring you back.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Like always, hey, I know I got a lot of value and enjoyment out of that. I mean, it wasn't only information. The robo, whether it be autonomous, whether it be talking about the bus, as you can tell, definitely Arrival has definitely put some research behind their company. One thing I noticed, just to kind of speak on, is this is really playing towards that next generational play. One of the things that I noticed, they got the microfactories, the components, the materials, the software, and all these enabling technologies, really where the mix really puts them at a competitive advantage. That's really what I saw when I did the research. But like always, guys, do your research and your own investment in decisions. And if you want to stay with the SPAC's Attack, the best show in the world, they're bringing you these exclusive interviews. Definitely hit the subscribe bell below, and we'll keep bringing you these great interviews. Anything else, Chris, to leave us off?
No, I will tease. We do have another interview coming later this week. It is in one of the target sector areas that we did a whole show on. So I'll leave it at that for now, but we'll let you know later this week which company that is. But I know you guys got great value out of that interview. So make sure you hit like and subscribe if you did not. And go ahead and share this video again with some of these SPACs. It's all about getting the information out there, to make those decisions. And what better way to get the information than, from directly from the company and asking some of those key questions about, competition and costs. So, thanks to the viewers in the chat as well, for adding some of those questions for more value in this interview. So another great interview here.
Yeah, definitely. As you guys can see from everybody in here, hey, giving us some love. This is exactly what we do, trying to pay it forward to you guys so that you guys can get the information that you guys need to be informed traders out there in the SPAC world. So definitely, guys, we'll see you next time on the SPACs. Attack, baby. Let's go.